Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. I'm François Picard. He's one of the best-known political faces in Egypt, former Secretary General of the Arab League, candidate to the last year's presidential elections. Amr Moussa, thank you for welcoming us to your offices here in the Garden City neighborhood of Cairo.
Thank you for visiting us.
The events have moved so swiftly over the past 3 weeks. Just a few days before Egypt's first democratically elected president, civilian president, was ousted. There was that communique from the army giving a warning. Did you think things would go this fast?
Well, we expected after 30 June that things won't continue as they have been. It was a popular revolution against the rule of Dr. Morsi because of the failure of his regime to provide for anything that people have expected after the January revolution of the year 2011. So we were asking ourselves as Egyptians, can we really afford another year of the same way of ruling, the same failures? And Egypt is going
if you look at the opinions,
backward.
If you look at the opinion surveys in France, a lot of people ask themselves the question of the French president, but we don't have movements that oust him after 1 year after his election.
Yeah, but we are living in Egypt in an atmosphere of revolution. France is not in the same atmosphere. So we are talking about Egypt and a revolution that has started in January 2011 against the previous regime of President Mubarak. Now, we expected that things will go in a better way, and that reform will be the order of the day, and all policies will be geared to rebuild the country. We found that none of this was in the order or in the agenda of the new regime. So after 1 year, yes, indeed, he was democratically elected, but democratically elected to serve Egypt, democratically elected to reform Egypt, democratically elected to perform and to represent Egypt, as you say in French, comme il faut. We found that none of this was achieved.
You, when you were running for president, personally had to counter people who said to you, oh, you're a remnant of the old regime because you had been the foreign minister of Mubarak for a decade. You said, no, I was there in Tahrir Square. You were one of those who moved for it. The fact, though, that it's the army backing this movement, doesn't that undermine, in a way, you as a civilian, you as the head of a political party?
No, the word undermine is not the correct word.
Over the long run?
When you look at it from our angle, and you find that we tried everything, all avenues, contacts, proposals, initiatives, sending to the government of Dr. Morsi, trying to save the situation and trying to save Egypt, we found that there is no use. Then came the demonstrations, 30 June. The reaction of the former president was based on a kind of denial. Nothing is happening. That this revolution is just demonstrations paid for by somebody, provoked by some groups or some parties. They didn't grasp the essence of the thing, that people were angry.
In the days leading...
Therefore, just a minute, because you raised the point of the army and the acceptance of what the army has done. The army also is composed of Egyptian citizens that have saw Egypt going down the drain, saw Egypt retreating, saw Egypt suffering from the lack of progress, lack of reform. This is the point. So the army is not separated from the Egyptian society. They were also angry. And they tried also to convince the president that he must take a step forward. He must meet the opposition, the general opposition. So we don't see in that a coup, but we see in that one line, one front, all Egyptians, officers, judges, and all others were on the same line. You should look at it from this angle. Those who brought down Dr. Morsi are the friends and colleagues of Dr. Morsi. They prevented the whole regime from doing anything anything useful.
Nevertheless, even when he was elected president, even Mohamed Morsi agreed that the defense minister would have his own budget and would not answer to him. When will Egypt have a regime where the defense minister, where the army answers to the president?
Well, we saw not a question of answering to the president or a telephone call. We saw their pictures together day after day after day, the Minister of Defense meeting with the President. So all those stories that he doesn't answer, he goes by
But the
himself.
army got to pick the defense minister in this case, the head of the armed forces.
The defense minister said several times, and it was recorded as we saw it on the TV, that he went to the president, explained the situation, explained the anger of the people, and asked for a certain step forward for him to meet the demands or starting meeting the demands, because there is a kind of agitation in the whole population, and unprecedented. That's what General Sisi has seen, and everybody, yourself, myself, and everybody else. We wonder why only the president and his colleagues in the regime had a mental block against it, a denial. But no, that's not it. So he didn't believe what the Minister of Defense has told him.
You were mentioning that there had been contacts made to try to negotiate, talk with the Muslim Brotherhood. You yourself, in the run-up to June 30th, met with the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood. What happened?
Well, the same. The most important thing I had in mind is to spare Egypt and the young people in Egypt a bloody confrontation, and to tell them that this is the result of the bad governance.
How far did you get in the discussions?
Well, he accepted that they are committing, and they have committed a lot of mistakes. And we're about to talk about, therefore, you have to change the attitude. You have to change this kind of policy of denying, of refusing, of...
He being Mohamed Morsi.
As Ikhwanization, I don't know whether this word is clear for you or not. So it was the discussion about that. They have to correct themselves in order for the ship to move.
So that he being Mohamed Morsi, when you were discussing with the leadership?
Well, when we discussed with President Morsi, that was the last time we met was November, past November. So the situation was different. We talked about
I was talking about the more recent discussions you had with the Muslim Brotherhood leadership.
Yeah.
And there was no feeling of...
No. Some promises. But as you know, promises are not the thing that would convince people like us. There are certain offers. The government has to change. A better government, a better governance, the way they were conducting their relations with the judiciary, something that unacceptable. Unacceptable for us, not only as people who understand the separation or between the executive and the judiciary, but as citizens. Why do you attack judiciary?
When the Arab Spring began, there was a snowball effect. Is there going to be a snowball effect now? For instance, is there going to be an effect on the Islamists in Tunisia?
Well, what happened in Egypt and what happens in Egypt is going to affect the situation in the region. And I always believed that what happens in any Arab country has an influence on the situation in other Arab countries. Egypt comes first in this practice. And what happened is a huge thing, not only toppling a president or a regime, but raising a question mark about the viability of the theory held by the political Islam.
Is political Islam dead?
No, nothing is dead. In politics, nothing is dead. But weakened,
and how do you explain the fact...
pushed aside, something of that kind. And but this needs a separate discussion. It's a very deep question.
For more than a year, you've been chasing after a $4.5 billion loan from the IMF. In the days that follow the ouster of President Morsi, 12 billion is pledged from the Gulf states. Does that make Egypt beholden to the likes of Saudi Arabia?
I continue to believe that we should go ahead with the IMF and sign the deal, regardless of the amount of money coming or pledged to come. With the IMF, because of what it means and because of the package around that deal, European, American, African, and the rest. The Arab contribution is a separate one, but of course it has to be taken into consideration. But this does not prevent me from insisting that it is better to go to the IMF and sign the deal.
Why did the Saudis side against the Muslim Brotherhood in this case?
Not only the Saudis, most of the Arab world.
But why?
Because of their conduct of relations. You see what happened with Emirates, between Muslim Brotherhood and their cells in the Emirates. The Emirates didn't accept that, and there was a crisis. This crisis is not between Egypt and Emirates. It is between Muslim Brotherhood and Emirates. Why should Egypt bear this, the brunt of such a policy that Egypt as a country has nothing to do with it, no interest in it at all? So, yes, there was a lot of resentment in the Arab world, East and West, by the way, in the two wings of the Arab world. Seeing Egypt weakened, absent, not very serious, that angered all Arabs. And their support of the change is based partly on, or mainly on, the fact that they are expecting Egypt to get back to the leadership.
All right, well, let's see if that prediction holds true, and let's hope that your country can soon break out of this impasse. I want to thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you, Amr Moussa. I want to thank you for being with us here for the France 24 interview.